I met you through 45 Days to Awakening. I read your two books, Unprincipled Life, and then what is it, 20? What's the other one again?
Yes.
Awakening?
Yeah. Living Awake, 20 Techniques to End I Got It, I
20,
Lost.
yeah, Living Awake. So before we started this recording, we talked a little bit about letting go. And I know my experience of letting go comes from kind of Sedona method and Hale Dwoskin. Like, where have you kind of started your practice or learned kind of about letting go? Is that something that came about organically, or is that something that you studied with some for a while? Or tell me a little bit about that.
The very first like big letting go for me was when I admitted I needed to divorce from my first husband, because I had just been so in a track that I thought a good wife makes her marriage last.
That
Really,
box.
I couldn't see outside of that.
Yeah.
And in the moment when I finally said, according to that rule, I'm a failure, all of a sudden, instead of feeling horrible, I felt love, so much love. And it was like, okay, so it's not the rules that matter, it's the authenticity that matters. I was letting go of the rule, letting go of the concept, letting go of the standard. And I mean, at the moment, it was almost like dying. I mean, it was so hard to
Okay,
say,
wait. So
okay,
hold on. You had this rule of a good wife doesn't leave her husband.
right.
And within that construct, you had been carrying around this heaviness of feeling like a failure. And then, so what happened? Like one morning you woke up and were just like, I can't do this anymore. Or like, tell me a little bit about like how that shift occurred for you.
I had been reading several books that talked about God as love, because I was in a God arrangement at the time, and that God wasn't about standards, that there was grace, that there was way more grace than we ever imagined. There was way more love than we ever imagined. And finally, with the misery I had managed to get myself into, there was like this exhale. What if I just go ahead and trust the grace? What if I just say I need forgiveness here instead of trying to be superhero woman? And the moment I said maybe there's enough grace, maybe there's enough forgiveness, it was like it just came down in this avalanche of love. And that's when I knew, okay, so all this efforting is wrong. Letting go is the access to love.
And in that you were letting go of the beliefs, letting go of the structure, letting go of the judgment against yourself, or tell me a little bit about kind of what it was that you feel like really left your system, or would you not even use words? Would it be more of an energy, or kind of what are your thoughts there?
Yeah, letting go of looking good, letting go of living up to any standard, letting go of expecting my life to look like any standard. It was like, okay, we're going to just follow this inner authority, and this inner authority isn't going to follow any rules. It's like, okay, I'm going to start trusting the inner authenticity.
And the books you were reading at the time were talking a lot about God's love or
Right.
benevolence, or do you have any
Like the
authors or teachers there that you really
Yeah,
like?
at the time there was a Catholic author, Brennan Manning, and he might have even gotten excommunicated, I'm not sure. But he was really just over and over taking the story of the prodigal son and applying it to life all over the place. And,
Mm.
you know, I think it's even better than the prodigal son now. Like any part of us that is willing to be in suffering is the part to be grateful to. That's the part that is actually being willing to be the background to highlight the rest. You know,
What do
that's
you what do you
that
mean? Like, okay, so this part of you that's willing to suffer is like providing the contrast, or kind of talk a little bit more about that.
yes. So, um, I mean, this is totally a parable, but okay, say I want to experience myself as, brilliant. Well, the only way, or let's say not brilliant, something that's more relational, uh, well, is kind.
Yeah, kind. I was about to say.
I can't be kind unless there's somebody for me to be kind to. So that means there has to be somebody else who's willing to be in a position of need so I can get the experience of being kind. I can't be compassionate unless there's somebody else willing to be in the position that needs compassion. I can't be a warrior unless there's somebody else who's willing to be the victim that I'm defending. There's there in every case, there's some, and at the biggest level, the infinite is experiencing this physicality in order to see, what does loss feel like, what does fear feel like. And any one of us who's willing to adventure into those deepest regions is bringing back these treasures. And those ones who are willing to go the farthest, to be the evilest, they're the ones who are bringing back the most novel, the most rare treasures.
Like the deeper they go on it, or
Right,
the more that they feel the feelings or the experience.
right, right. So,
And
so,
yeah,
anyways, to bring it back, so so the letting go. Once I kind of got just how true that is, it just started loosening up the willingness to let go and let go and let go. Because my value system was all in the Judeo-Christian thing, you know.
was it kind of cascading for you? Like once that first one started to fall, then you kind of were in a period of like letting go of a lot of the things that weren't serving you for like, tell me about that.
Yeah, it never ends. It never ends, letting go. I mean, just recently, I could see how there were times when I was feeling bad only because I felt like, well, I'm a good person and I have to hold a standard in the world. And so I have to agree that there's a problem. I have to agree that so and so is getting mistreated in a way that, says this world is fucked up. But I don't. I don't. That I never have to say, because in the depths, I know everybody is going to make it through, and they're going to make it through really well.
Now compare that against, you know, very there's been some pretty bad things that have happened to humans. So you mean this in a spiritual sense of like, although the body and in this existence may experience tremendous amounts of pain and suffering, you mean the, as you would probably call it, the unharmable part of us makes it through? Is that kind of what you're talking about, or share with me more?
Yes, yes. Like when I look back at when my life seemed to collapse in various ways, when I lost my health, or I lost my job, or I lost my relationship, or I lost my place to live, all four of those happened to me. But each time there was something better that came through on the other side. And the better takes a little bit of value shifting sometimes, but it always made me know the truth better. So that doesn't mean that I can't have compassion for somebody going through that, because it can be really tough. I have no problem having compassion. But I don't have to say the next level, which is saying, and this is bad and shouldn't be happening. I really don't have to say that.
What about the extreme examples of this, right? So, um, I mean, I'm open to seeing where this goes, and we'll get back to the more specifics about letting go. But I have a family friend who, like, their 22-month got ran over, and so it's like I can imagine trying to explain to them this, and them being like, "Hey, there's no reframe here that's going to allow us to feel good about this," which is why I think what you're talking about is the is the expansion of the spirit, and how there's things occurring that we don't understand? Or what, how would you describe kind of what you're talking about, where as a person in our journey we can go through these things that really cause a beautiful amount of expansion, but then when we look out in the world we can see things where it's like, it's hard to say that that is what happened on their journey, at least from the part of their journey that we can see.
So this a 22-month-old child got killed.
Hmm.
Okay. All right. I don't know what their journey is going to be. I can only say it was my 22 month who got killed. This is the process most likely I would end up in. First, gosh, loss, and the imagining of the pain of the death, and then a calmness, like, okay, wait a minute, is my mind helping this situation? And then really, once I'm ready, getting into, okay, what is my belief here? And my belief is I merited having this being in my life longer, and this being merited more time on earth. Those would be the beliefs. But those are very painful beliefs. Maybe I don't own this child. Maybe this child only wanted to be here for 22 months. Maybe this child is way happier now, which I happen to know is the truth. Maybe those 22 months were an amazing gift. I mean, maybe this is a soul who rarely even comes to earth. And I said, please, please come visit me while I'm on earth. And they said, okay, great. I'll be your child for 22 months. And it's like, amazing. I get to have you on earth with me for 22 months. And then when it happens, I forget that. But so the truth is, the child was never mine. Never. And those 22 months were the precious gift of getting to have this being with me. And once I really let go, I mean, that is an amazing letting go, to say this child is not mine and everything I'm given is grace. Now I'm just cherishing those 22 months, and I'm letting them infuse me with the life and the vision and the love that will continue to affect the rest of my life. But I'm not in any way minimizing it by saying it's somehow not enough. I mean, how could it not be enough?
Yeah, there's definitely, merited being here longer and not enough. Is your frame that, kind of infinite beings, entering this for a certain amount of time, or is that kind of the, yeah, I guess, how do you view this? Like, what do you think, to the best of your ability, what do you think is happening?
Now, this is really a model. If you go to the highest, there is this just spontaneous eruption happening. And then if you go beyond that, there's nothing. So, okay, but we're having this physical existence, but this physical existence is actually just a step down from something else that is also just a play. And the play is that we are multiple souls. That's the play. The physical is the workshop within the play within the play. Physical life is the play within the play. The larger play is that we're souls. And as souls, we're taking on the soul persona and going on soul adventures. And
But that play's happening within something else. So it's kind of like, hey, this is our best ability to kind of describe what we relatively, but like you would probably even say this model, like, it will break down pretty quickly because you're getting to something that's just beyond any comprehension, any language, anything. But if you had to describe it, you'd say we're souls coming into this like workshop, but this workshop is within a play, within a play, within something that exceeds anything. Okay. How do people feel that though? Because like most people, so I discovered this belief, which I think most people will recognize when I say it, which is, there's a sense that this is real. And when I look at that feeling, I'm like, this is real. Like it feels real. Um, And so then I like lean on the other side. I'm like, well, let's play with it not being real. And I'm not saying that like one is true. Both of these are models, you know what I mean? But like, oh, I had taken it for granted that I'm just like, well, this is real.
There's two moments when we notice it's not real.
Well, do you think it's real or not real? I think it's like both of these are concepts. So,
Yes.
okay. So
Right.
neither is actually true.
Right. This is the closest thing to reality we've got, but it's not real in that it's not permanent, and our perception of it is really skewed because we're constantly perceiving through our filters.
Okay. So the way that I describe this is like experiencing is happening. So
Yes.
I can say there's something appears to be happening,
Right.
but I can't make any. I don't know. This is gonna sound weird. So the way that this happened to me is I was reading a book, and somehow I came to the realization that I thought it was real, and somehow my mind went to the other concept of like, oh wow, I just didn't even notice that belief. There's that saying of like fish in the water. They're like, how's the water today, boys? You're like, water? Like, what are you talking about? You're so in it, you don't even realize it. So I had a dream that night. This is such a stupid story, but I'm just going to tell it anyway. So I had a dream that night. And in the dream, there was a big stadium that I was going into, and I was getting dressed up. This is so stupid. But, anyways, I put a crop top on. I don't know why, but I was like, I want to wear a crop top. And then I walk out into the stadium, and someone's like, you can't wear that. I'm like, oh, you're right. And I go back into the dressing thing, and I change into something more acceptable. And then I walk out to the stadium, and then I wake up. And I felt a real sense of loss. And the sense of loss was like, well, if I had known it wasn't real, I would have worn the fucking crop top. I would have just played it full out. And this isn't about wearing a crop top as a guy. I'm just saying. And so I woke up and I'm like, what a waste. Like, if I'd known that it wasn't real, I would have just fully played it. So
Yes,
check this.
that is exactly what I'm talking about. That what matters more is that we get to be our authentic expression, and it turns out we love loving. So like if I really really want to do something kind for somebody and I'm not sure exactly how the money part's going to work out, I mean obviously if you're being so detached from what is in your bank account,
That you're non-functional.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's probably you're in denial at some level. But if you're like surrendered, like, I know the reality here, and this may be a stretch, but my heart says go for it, then yes, we can afford to follow our hearts because that's what we're here to do, follow our hearts. So the same thing when I see my husband, he's not like an access to me in our marriage. He's his whole separate person. If he falls in love with somebody else, I'm going to say, Yahoo, I'm happy for you. And truly, there are moments when that fear has come. They haven't happened in this relationship, um, but I can, when that fear comes, I can feel, but yeah, but the greatest thing is to love him in his fullness. And yes, that is that is what feels like the biggest me. Or if he doesn't want to, we think we're doing a project together, it turns out no, he's all in some other project, and I'm going to have to find some other way to get through this project without him. Yes, that's the letting go, because life, the aliveness, that is the priority, that inner authenticity of joy and life springing forth. And the letting go is saying, hey, I am going to follow this. I am going to feel good. I'm going to be in touch with this deeper knowing of life and love and joy. And I'm not going to make it fit into any category.
Yeah, when I'm listening to you, what came up for me is letting go of the things that are blocking unconditional love. Like what you're saying is that at your core, it's unconditional love, and
Yeah.
that you're a source of, and we are all that. And letting go is letting go of anything that is an impediment or a block to just absolutely unequivocally permeating your entire being, full expression of love. Yeah, that's really interesting. I've never thought about it from that perspective.
And for myself too. So if I'm starting to be like, oh, Lisa, by this age, you should have done blah, 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 whatever. Wait a
You're
minute.
included in that too.
Yes, I am full cherishing of this existence.
Unconditional love for everything, self
Yeah,
included.
yes. So if some standard is getting in my way, some expectation, some looking good, some fulfilling a, commitment is getting in the way of that. No,
It's
I have
letting
to
go.
honestly say, I can't. I'm sorry. This is love, and it doesn't fit the box I thought it was going to fit.
I wanna transition this one. I wanna close the loop on this other one because I do want your perspective here, which was I didn't understand I had the belief that things were real. And this experience, what it showed me is that sometimes thinking it's real will like kind of deaden the aliveness. And I realized that so someone would be like, is it real, not real? I'm like, whichever one feels more alive to you, which you've talked about aliveness before, but which, and so like, I was like, oh, if you feel like you're taking it for, you're assuming it's real, and then it's causing you to play it safe, or this is the way it feels in my system. When I had that experience and I woke up and I was like, oh, if I'd known it wasn't real, I would have played it full out. And then I looked at my own life and I'm like, well, how do I know that I'm not asleep right now? I'm like, well, the only no way I would know is if I would wake up. And I was like, okay, well, then there's a possibility that the belief in the model that it's real is causing me to be less alive and causing me to like play it more safe. So I don't know. I guess I just want your thoughts on it. Like, have you, we're talking about love and now I'm talking about aliveness, but like I did see in my system that believing it's real did cause more of a want for safety, and it did cause me to kind of contract more. So I don't know. Yeah, I don't know what that was. I don't even know what my question is, but is that spark anything in you?
Yes, it sounds like that process is just naturally happening in you because it made you see the two values, and the aliveness just keeps bubbling up as the more potent. And so in that moment, you're like, well, maybe I've got to follow the aliveness regardless of the safety idea. And I think that was the bigger thing is safety that important? And believing it's real makes safety seem more important, but you don't have to stop believing it's
Oh,
real.
that's
You can.
good. No, that's a good insight. So it's not about it being real or not real. It's that believing it's real causes more of a want for safety than believing it's not. And I don't know what's up with this safety thing. Like, I really do want more of the aliveness, but there is also a want for safety. What does that feel like for you, or what does that spark in you, or what have your experiences been around kind of safety versus aliveness? I know we're talking about love, so I'm curious how safety and aliveness like fits in with that too.
Well, love is just an expression of aliveness. The aliveness loves being loving, so they're very aligned for me, and I think for most people. Um, but the safety, it's not like we can go at a hammer onto safety. That's just going to create lots of resistance in the system. But as you have in your life, taken more risks, played around with, okay, I don't have to do this. I can break up with so and so. I can, you just test, where can I let go of this priority on safety? And then it works out. And then it works out.
What's up with the safety? Like, if we're talking about, this being a spiritual experience and we're talking about this, like, what's up? Because it doesn't, I don't know, man, it doesn't feel that good.
It doesn't. But that's the core of this adventure. That because what we are, the infinite, cannot experience not being safe. It can't. So it had to create something that could die, supposedly, so it could feel vulnerability, it could feel fear, it could feel defensiveness. All those things come into being the moment we think we could die. But without death, most of those things don't actually have any any strength of experience.
There's like no juice there without it. Yeah.
Right. So that's the experience of coming into the human. It's purely to get to experience this vulnerable fragility. That's it. And see what how does this aliveness interact with this vulnerable fragility? And every way it interacts is worth it. So it just happens that many of us have this interest in, well, what happens if you follow the aliveness and let the sense of vulnerability just be there without accommodating it? We're not going to make it completely go away. I mean, we're in the
No, and I'm not necessarily trying to make it go away. I'm just acknowledging that like it really feels real.
yeah, right. So then we get to have compassion for it, and the aliveness loves getting to have compassion.
Well, sometimes it gets really scary.
Yeah, that's true. But there's usually access to the part that holds the scared part.
What's interesting about it not being real and approaching it is like it's not that there like aren't physical consequences for it, but it really stretched. I mean, there was so much energy and aliveness that went through the system.
Yes. And every time we're afraid that, if we take a risk, something terrible is going to happen, even if the terrible thing happens, it always happens differently than we expect. Because we create some picture where we're like all alone and we're in this horrible situation and there's no help. And it's never like that.
Yeah.
It happens differently than we thought it was going to happen. Lessons come, help comes, other people are there. It's very dynamic. So we're never in the full catastrophe that our brain can imagine.
Yeah, this might be more of a masculine thing. I'm wondering if you've had this experience, but like the most freeing thing for me is when the worst possible thing happens. So like I because I'm like, oh, okay, well, fuck it then. Like so like and a lot of people live they're guarding against the worst thing happening. And in my life I do a lot of things that most people would be terrified of. But like what I've found is I'm like living in that box where I'm like guarding against worst case. And I've found that like there have been a good amount of times that worst case has happened. And it counterintuitively created so much freedom and energy in the system because I was like, oh, fuck it then. And I was like, we're just going to play full out and just allowed for full because I was like, it's already happened.
Yes.
But people assume that if the worst case happens, it's going to be terrible. But it's so weird that it's the exact opposite because you realize that you're now free from it and you're like, oh, well, fuck it then. And you just live full out and you feel so alive.
Exactly. You are a very good living model of this. Very
Yeah.
good in so many areas of your life.
Yeah. I have a lot of stuff that I do that like that brings it about. But I'm always kind of like in the box, and the box to me is like some sort of fear or resistance to the worst thing happening, and it's just the box that's in the mind, and then I move towards it,
Right.
um, and then normally it pops. Like a lot of times, like it just happens, like it just the worst case happens, and I like live through the worst case. Um, And then I'm like,
And
oh,
any leader, whether it's in business or in relationship, they will say, hey, there's going to be failures. Don't avoid the failures. Just keep going through them because the good stuff's on the other end. So it doesn't matter. They are going to happen because our minds don't expect learning to walk involves falling. Our minds don't.
it's where all the juice is. So basically, again, I don't know if it's different for you or for other people, but the way I'm oriented is like, as soon as I'm scared of something, and not scared in a way that is like a very calm, like understandable, but like, a little bit, I'm like, okay, well, that's clearly where we head. Like I go right towards the fear because I know that all of the freedom is on the other side.
Exactly.
So let's talk about letting go. So this is how we started,
Yeah.
which is your initial experience of letting go of the standards that you had at that point in time. Um, so tell me more about letting go, what it feels like to you now, who you've learned from, kind of. Let's talk a little bit more about Lisa's experience with letting
Yeah.
go.
So I think some of those examples I just gave, my husband is wonderful because he is the biggest unknown in my life. Who knows whether he's going to do what I thought he was going to do or he's going to do something else.
True
So
for you though, right? Like you don't know what you're going to do.
that's true. I'm also a big unknown. That's for sure. Where is this inner guidance going to go? But I usually get a little bit of warning before it happens when it's in my system. So I can feel the aliveness shifting. I can feel the guidance going in another direction. And so then I have I have extra moments to let go, but I have fewer extra moments in regards to him. And this this real sharp emphasis on I know it's good. And that's not a philosophy. That's only because, I've done enough examining of everything that has happened to me. I know it's good.
What do
So
you
when
mean?
I know life is working out for my best. I know that everything's being given to me and nothing is happening
And
to me.
even in the worst case examples, like let's say you have a beautiful life and then you have just an absolutely horrific, tragic ending that no one would want.
Right.
You would still say
Right.
working out for me.
Yes, because when I lost my health, it turned out great. I learned so much through that whole process. When I lost my relationship, that turned out to be amazingly freeing. When I lost my job, that turned out to really have me relook at things in my life. I mean, every time that when I lost my place to live, that was amazing. The next place I ended up so much better.
It's funny
And
you're saying the same thing I say, which is like when the worst case happens and it's everything you guard against, is it's always better. And I don't understand, and nor do we really need to understand, but it just mirrors my experience where it's like the worst case thing happens and somehow it creates freedom and somehow it turns into the best thing and you're like, it makes, you know what I mean, where you're like, should I just be heading towards worst case for everything in my life, then just burn everything to the ground, or what?
right. Yeah. So it's not a philosophy. It's just a knowing that okay, so this next thing that happens that I think is not good, it is good. So I am not going to waste time agonizing about it. My life is too precious for me. The truth is too precious to me. The knowing that love is what I am is too precious to me. That so no longer is letting go feeling like a sacrifice. Letting go is standing in truth. That this is somehow good. Letting this thing falling out of my life is somehow good. And I am not going to get myself deceived into worrying about it. I'm going
So
to,
if the husband left, you would eventually move into, I know this is somehow good, or would there be understandably some amount of like resistance or upsetness, but then letting go of that because you like underneath it, you assume somehow beyond you, that this is good for you and for the other person, or what, and I don't mean to bring something up that could be upsetting, so I want to be careful there.
Yeah. There's, um, sure, the human might have its reaction, but really, the the reaction, while the reaction is happening, the truth part is already rising up. So it's there's never the, oh my gosh, this is horrible, and it just stays there. The truth part is immediately coming in, immediately.
How much do you feel human?
How much are you human?
Well, you're like the human, its reaction. So like even in the language you're saying, it's like the human's over here.
Right. Yes. Um, you know, it depends from what I've been doing. If I've just been really task focused, when the human
The
reaction
human.
happens, it can feel intense, but the moment of it feeling intense, that's immediately where there's that, okay, wait a minute, we forgot, we're all okay. And so the other part just starts coming in right away.
So sometimes you can get like very narrowed in tunnel vision, but as soon as it hits, like really hits on like that, then like there's an immediate recognition to like identify, like you just become immediately aware that you're identifying with that.
Right. I became very aware that, oh, I got lost in a mental structure here and I'm not that. And that doesn't mean that the mental structure goes away. I'll feel the mental structure too, but I also feel the infinite that's always here, and feel it and know, okay, so I don't know exactly how this is going to come out in the end, but the unharmability is here too. And now we're in this dialogue, we're in this play, we're in this dance. I get to love the her part. I get to be in discovery and curiosity. And I'm not trying to chase away the her part. I'm not trying to make it stop. I just want to understand it. Because as I understand it, it completes itself. So, like if my husband were leaving me, the hurt part would be, oh gosh, okay, so he's taking all his half of the house money, and now how's this going to work for our house? And okay, he's taking the friendship that I use as a support day by day. Okay, how's that going to work for friendship support? Like, I really just get very specific. I'm not going to awfulize that, oh my gosh, my life is ended. I mean, that doesn't mean anything. What are my very specific beliefs? And, hold the little part. Okay, you feel abandoned. I love you. I love that I get to love you. I love that I get to see you feeling abandoned and give you some love. It's, but all those beliefs, I just quickly start delineating. Okay, where is the mind going crazy? Let's get very tangible here, get it down. And then I can look at the beliefs and see, oh, yeah, right, that's not really true. Oh, that's not really a worry. And get down to the two that actually feel, oh, yeah, I can feel there's some charge there.
Like what charge there, like around the belief or energy around the belief,
Right. So
and
it's
then those are the ones that you're going to focus on letting go of.
right. Those are the ones where, and like I said, now it doesn't even feel like letting go. I just understand, oh, right, you kind of felt like you owned your husband, didn't you? Oh, interesting. You were feeling like you owned him. Well,
So for you, it doesn't even necessarily, there's like a letting go process, but for you, it's like just the awareness that you're holding on is enough. Like you're like, oh, got it. Okay, I see the play here, or
right.
something like that. That's what I'm hearing. Because I mean, for me or for most other people, I think we have a little bit more of a process for letting go because we grip harder, and it may be because we're more identified with
Well,
them.
if I stayed my focus on that, it's much harder to let it go. But then I remember, oh, but I am this pure joy. And I know how to get there. I know how to remember. Why would I waste time being not this pure joy? Why? I mean, obviously, there's no problem with not doing that. But at this point, it's like, oh, but that's available.
But you're identified. So first of all, you see the availability of it. Okay, so understandably, there's some people who are like, what is she talking about? So you can see the availability of it. And then also you tend to orient you identifying yourself as more that than this other thing.
Right. Absolutely. Just like when you could have worn the crop top in the dream, it was like that was my authentic self, the one who wanted to wear the crop top.
Yeah.
And that in itself is its own journey of discovering, wow, that's right. I'm not the one who feels abandoned. I am the one who jumps into the next experience.
Well, how do you access more of that, or feel more of that? Because I think a lot of people, and myself included, I don't necessarily feel like I'm infinite joy, you know? I feel like I'm like a mini joy.
Well, um, there's there's constant love coming towards us. There's a few different ways to look at it. One of them is noticing the constant love coming toward us. So the person who's getting angry at me, who's helping me learn, oh, wow, I don't have to take on somebody else's anger. They are making me dig deep, put my roots down. And they did the most painful thing in order to give me that lesson. They forgot themselves so much that they got lost in anger. Wow, that is love coming towards me so I can learn to put my roots down. That is amazing love. Thank you, thank you, thank you. You know, I was raised in that really strict fundamentalism. We couldn't dance, we couldn't listen to rock and roll music, blah, blah, blah. And thank you. Because I end up having to say, that's not authentically me. And I had to find what was. So thank you for being, I mean, that whole structure, so much fear, so much constriction, so much control. Thank you for hiding like that. So love is coming towards me all the time.
And it's helping you see what your authentic is. The contrast is helping, and you're thanking the contrast for existing to allow you to uncover more.
Right. Like if I had been born into, I don't know, a Buddhist place or Unitarian or something that still had more structure than would have been authentic to me, but suppose the structure had been closer. I bet you it would have taken me several more years to find the inner authenticity. But because it was so starkly not what I am, and it had many gifts. I mean, speaking in tongues was definitely touching into some kind of, I don't know, world. So there was definitely some access to that even there. But yes, that love is coming towards me all the time. And I'm so grateful. And there's just this preciousness. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And when I see the love coming towards me all the time, now life is light. It's
And
all
even the contrast feels like love because it's allowing for discovery. So even when there are what we would call like upsetting feelings or bad feelings, they are another form of love that's allowing you to kind of like delineate more of what your core essence is.
exactly.
Or how would you say it? Is that,
No, you said it perfectly. You said it perfectly. Yes. So,
I think it's hard for us to remember that. I mean, maybe not for you. It sounds like your system is like, I don't want to say trained, but like your natural reaction is to re-identify with the bigger. Um, but I think for a lot of us, we get hooked on the not good feeling, and we're identified with the not good feeling.
right. But it's a practice, right? I mean, you, I had to gradually get there. It was just something that happened over a practice of years. You know, it's not like, oh wow, I've been had to work on this for 10 years. Well, no, you start noticing and you feel a little better. And then you notice a little more and you feel even better. So it's not like there's rewards all along the way. So, yeah, I know you've experienced that a lot in your life.
The I don't want to call it a trap, but like the pattern of identifying less with the larger and more with the limited seems to be a pretty consistent pattern.
Except for, I mean, look, you were just sharing about needing to move, and you found that it was actually helping you.
Hmm. Yeah. I'm pretty. I think I'm talking more the most difficult, like so. Whatever the most difficult emotions are, and for each person, I would say they have their favorites, right? Where they have like their favorite one or two, and it's like oh, it'll never work for me. Things never work. Like that's like an example of like a little worry stone, and it's like their favorite. And I'm like, those for the individual people, it seems to be that's the pattern or the trap where they those things trip them up pretty consistently, and in those instances they're more identified as the smaller than as the larger.
Right. But you learn to walk by falling and falling and falling. So in some areas, they're taking steps, and in other areas, they're falling still, but they'll eventually start taking steps. The main thing is to really pay attention to how much pain it causes and pay attention to what is the reward of feeling so small. If I feel small, then I don't have to go find the career I would really like, or I don't have to go find the relationship I'd really like, or I don't have to let my child, my adult child, run their own life in pell mell, however they're going to do it. As long as I can feel the smallness, I kind of have a little structure I can stay in.
So first, and I agree, is like the payoffs, like being mindful of or asking the person kind of like what's the payoff or what's the benefit here. What was the you said something before the payoff, so it
Pay
was
attention to how much pain it's causing.
how much pain
Really,
it's causing. So what do you mean by that?
it's sapping our life force. Totally sapping our life force. How in the world can we be the full loving people we are, the full creative people we are, the full contributing people we are?
It's just hard in the moment when you're experiencing the feeling. Like you have a presence about you, and you've developed a really uh, robust reaction. Like it's almost like second nature to you, like breathing and your heart beating. Like you're not making your heart beat, you're not making it yourself breathe. And then also like this identifying with the larger infinite, to me at this point in your system, Lisa, it feels like your heart beating in your lungs. But for most people, they haven't even had one experience of that. Or maybe they have, but they haven't put their awareness on it. I guess what I'm saying is like, uh, well, you're very gifted in this area. Not that the gift like wasn't earned, or effort wasn't made to create it, but
But
when
most people can remember it could be the birth of a child or a death that then suddenly there was this amazing sweetness afterwards.
the awe.
Yes, the ah,
So
that
awe is like their first, most people's kind of like,
access.
right, and probably potentially in their lives, the moments of awe have been the only points of access. But that still feels like an other to them versus it being them. Whereas for you, you're like, oh, I even right there in your reaction, you forgot that like for other people, it feels like an other.
Right.
Yeah, because you're
That
so
is our true
identified.
self. Right. That is our true self. So that's what meditation is for, to rest in that awe, to rest in that moment that we recall, oh yeah, that's right. There was something infinite. There was something bigger than me. There was something there, and just saturate, marinate. Meditation is not about controlling or trying to get anywhere. It's just marinating in that sense of, oh yeah, there's this being, there's this aliveness that is bigger than my little self.
This is what's coming up for me. This question I've been asking myself, which I think will make sense when I say it. So when I find myself in a really upset feeling, it's like it's very narrowing of my aperture, and it's focusing, and it's like boom. Uh, Currently, the way that I transition is I have a question, and my question is, what would it look like to have a full cup here?
Beautiful.
And by asking that, it hits that thing where you're like, okay. And the answer to the full cup isn't to not feel the feeling, and it isn't to not experience the experience, but like I have found it to be very useful for us regular folk who are still more identified, because they'll be like, did it, and I'm like, what would it look like to have a full cup here? And they're like, well, I just feel terrible. I'm like, I know. What would it look like to have a full cup here? And it just is like more access to what you're talking about.
Yes, yes. Another question is, what would it be like if I fully loved myself right now?
Mm.
If I couldn't have the capacity to blame myself right now, what would it look like if I fully loved myself right now?
Yeah, this goes back to the unconditional love.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know, that the full cup one for me has currently been causing the most shift, because sometimes there's not access, or there doesn't feel like there's access to love, but there feels like there's access to more feeling. So there's
Uh,
that saying of like, don't try to feel better, try to feel more. Um, and the full cup one, I think it's a stepping stone to accessing the love. Like it's like I'm in a lot of pain. I ask that, I'm able to feel, and then eventually it pulls right into the love. Like the love is like right there, and it just kind of helps expand, and then it like kicks over. Or that's what it feels like. There's no actual delineation. It's just like a gradient, a never-ending gradient between the two. But that's it's been really useful for me.
I love that. I absolutely love that.
Yeah, it came from a girl um that I'm dating, because I she really has a full cup. And as a man, we strive a lot, or I strive a lot. I don't want to project it too much. And it's hard to arrive. Like I'm like, it's always kind of out there in the future. I'm like driving, driving, driving. And I was like, well, how can I get some of that? And the full cup one was like, yeah, I don't think having a full cup here means not striving, but not in
Right.
the way that I've been doing it, where it's like disassociated and not present. It's like it gets to be all the things. It
Yeah.
feels more welcoming of every full cup. To me feels like welcoming of the entirety of every single part of this experience.
Yes. Yes. I have a question similarly, because I found myself, my schedule was getting busier, and it felt like, oh, wow, I actually have stuff I have to do a lot of the day. But then I was like, well, sometimes when I'm on vacation, I have many things I'm doing, but it doesn't feel like I have to. And I was like, oh, yeah, so this could be like a vacation list the exact same way. I'm on vacation, and yeah, of course, there's a lot of stuff on my list, but it's all on vacation. And it totally switched the context of my list.
Vacation list.
Yes.
Yeah, I have that happen too. Underneath that, there's like some sort of belief that I'd be happier not doing anything.
Right. And then you have nothing to do, and 5 minutes later, you're
So
concocting
it's just, yeah,
something.
it's a fabrication. So the mind is like, no, 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 it would be better if I don't do anything. But then those times where like I allow myself to do nothing, I mean, yeah, for a certain amount of time, you're never not doing anything. It's just totally made up. Like even you're thinking or you're breathing or you're sitting there or you're experiencing, it's like you're never not doing anything.
Right. Yep.
But the mind, it latches on. I don't understand why it grips to concepts so much.
Hmm. Yeah, it's
It's a
that.
characteristic of it, right?
Right, right. That's the it's wonderful that this limitation experience has this impulse to go towards something that feels certain. But its first attempt at certainty is a whole bunch of boxes. It turns out the certainty is, oh no, I'm in a bottomless fall. That's the certainty.